All right. Welcome, everybody. I
Brilliant
hope somebody
opening
was
tonight.
around to watch that, my little open there.
Guys, go back and watch the
Go
opening. We
watch the
did something
open,
special just for you.
yeah, exactly. Um, so we're doing, this is one of my favorite movies of all time, is Jaws. It's certainly one of the very popular movies of all time. I decided to do it because I noticed that it had aired 49 years ago last Thursday. So next year will be 50 years, if you can believe that, for this movie. And I think we're going to probably revisit it because I don't think an hour is going to contain what we have to talk about this film.
No. No,
So,
I have pages of information. So, yeah.
So before we get to that, I think you've got some news.
I have a little bit of news. I want to attempt to fly through it because I do want to get to this movie. Oh, side note, that's not news. Those of you who remember that we used to be a fan film before we were a set tour, if any of you are catching up on the sci-fi thriller Outer Range, starring Josh Brolin, it's super fun to see our own Brandon Stacy doing a special guest appearance in that. In the news, they say deaths come in threes, and we have lost 3 people. We've lost Bill Cobbs. You may remember him from Demolition Man, Cotton Club, Color of Money. If the name doesn't ring a bell, look him up. You will recognize his face immediately. He's one of these guys who's in everything. We lost Spence Milligan, who played Rick Marshall in Land of the Lost. And unfortunately, we have lost Donald Sutherland, who was in...
That was a blow.
Everything, huge blow. And for most of us, we were first exposed to him in maybe Dirty Dozen. He was in the Dirty Dozen, and then he was in Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
I think in Kelly's Heroes.
Yes, he was in Kelly's Heroes.
Kelly's Heroes is one of my favorite. That's my favorite Sutherland movie. But yeah, he was in the remake of the Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Yeah, just tons of stuff.
So many things.
Yeah. So many great roles. Animal House.
Yes. Everything from Animal House to heavy drama. And, you know, unbelievable.
For all the negative waves.
Unreal. All right. So moving on.
I know Kelly's Heroes is not a sci-fi movie, but it's, again, one of my favorite movies of all time. So anyway, other news.
Other news. If you at all watched Jesse Gender on YouTube, they are a popular Star Trek what do you call it? Commentator? I don't even know when you do your YouTube podcaster, I guess, on Star Trek. They put together a using cameos. You guys know cameos where you can pay a celebrity to give you like a shout out or to give a friend a shout out for their birthday or whatever. Using cameos, they put together a really cute little montage of all these Star Trek actors going lower decks in an effort to help save Lower Decks. So I'm going to put that link if you want to watch that video. I'll put that link in the chat when I'm done with the news. Paramount. All right, guys. Paramount Plus is raising prices again. Paramount Plus with Showtime is going up to $12.99. The Essential plan goes to $7.99, but supposedly just for new subscribers. So I guess I would I'm leaving mine alone. So I guess I'm okay. I don't know, whatever. In the meantime, those 3 co-CIOs are telling staff we have to cut $500 million in costs after unacceptable profit losses.
Well, they have to produce some stuff that's worth watching.
They need to produce some stuff that's worth watching.
I will say Mayor of Kingstown's a good show. Not science fiction at all.
Yes.
Especially if you like Jeremy Renner. Evil is a good show. It's kind of fun and weird. They're in their last season. And then you get to Lower Decks and, it kind of falls off.
Yes. It fell off hard. It's been fun.
Yeah, even what was it? Halo was okay.
Was okay.
It was for video. I think Amazon's Fallout did a much better job of an adaptation of.
Completely agree. Yeah.
Anyway, but
whatever. It is what it is. I mean, guys, perhaps you got all this debt. Perhaps Bob Bakish didn't need that $12 million bonus last year. Just saying.
It doesn't work that way, unfortunately.
All right, moving on. Boeing is in the news again. You guys already know what's going on with Boeing and their planes. Well, now they've got 2 astronauts sort of stuck at the space station. Not really stuck, but kind of stuck. These 2 astronauts are hanging out at the International Space Station. It's going on 2 weeks since they were supposed to be back on Earth. Barry Wilmore and Suni Williams will remain on the ISS on the International Space Station, while Boeing and NASA engineers work to fix a series of helium leaks on the Boeing Starliner spacecraft that got them up there. NASA said they're not technically stranded. They could actually just get back in and fly home, I guess, if necessary. But they're just, hanging out there to let the mission teams review propulsion system data and determine what caused the leaks and see if it's, dangerous. That might be useful. I don't know. And then finally tonight, Rizzo, you brought this article to my attention. NASA.
Florida man, no.
What are you thinking, NASA? So you're going to see, if you guys look this article up, you're going to see, Florida family sues NASA. That's not quite what's happening. But what's happening, kids, is NASA has been using our atmosphere as their own personal garbage disposal and just like throwing stuff out and thinking, oh, it'll all burn up on reentry. Well, this time something didn't. And a little piece, something it looked to be about this big,
it was
right?
About the size. Yeah, it was about, that's probably pretty close. Yeah, it went right through somebody's roof.
Went right through somebody's roof. No one got hurt, thank goodness. They are going to file a claim with NASA's insurance.
So what it was, NASA came and got this thing and was able to identify not only that it was theirs, but what pallet it came from.
Yes, they knew it.
Pallet of resupply stuff, and then they jettisoned this pallet thinking it's going to burn up, and most of it did, but apparently this water bottle size chunk, moving it, how God knows how fast
survived re-entry.
Imagine if it had hit somebody, it certainly would have killed them.
Oh God, yeah.
I mean, no doubt. So they're lucky that nobody was either. I don't know if anybody was home at the time, or did you imagine come home and you find this giant hole in your?
He said he was on vacation, but I guess some family members were still home. But I don't know, but
it does bring up a lot of interesting things. That there's a lot of space junk up there.
And question number one is, hey, maybe don't be using our atmosphere as a garbage disposal.
Well, if you're gonna set, and again, I'm sure Doc Alexander would be able to talk more intelligently on this, but it would seem to me that if you're going to do that, make sure that you set it on a course that's at least going to go over the ocean when it burns up, in case something doesn't quite burn up all the way. Anyway, it was an interesting story, so I passed.
It was a very interesting story. We'll see if NASA changes any of its behaviors. My bet is, I don't know. I think
you're right, Bill. That's right. Space Lab did land in Australia. I think it was, wasn't it?
Oh, did it? That's right. Yeah. I mean, guys, do you know how much junk is up there? They've been doing this.
God, there's tons of it.
Years.
Literally tons.
Tons of stuff. So, stuff could fall back down at any time. It's just, you got to do your burn up calculations very, very carefully and decide if it's going to burn up.
Space junk is a problem. And I know that that's an issue that has been come up over the years that, we used to be, I just leave it there, but it's getting to the point where that geosync, especially for satellites, is that's getting crowded. They can only put so many because they all have to be in that same basic part to stay geosynchronous over the same
synchronous part. You have to.
Yeah. By the way, that was Arthur C. Clarke that first theorized that before anybody else.
That's right, he did. Yeah, because he had the space elevator, and he thought the space elevator.
He had come up with that satellites should be so that they stay over the same spot. Anyway.
All right, Rizzo, what are we drinking tonight?
I came up with this one. It's called Jaws Breakfast. I don't know why it's called that, but it's tequila, Grand Marnier, blue curacao, lemon juice, and a dash of orange bitters.
Kind of citrusy, I guess.
Kind of a different, citrusy kind of summery drink.
Yeah, now we have a garbage ring around the planet. Yeah, we kind of do.
Basically, yeah. All right, getting into Jaws. Are we ready?
Done.
I know. So I did not see this in the theater. I was too young.
I was
only about 8 years old. 1975. It was probably just as well that my parents did not bring me, nor did I have any desire to see it in 1975 because it was reported as a scary movie. As an 8-year-old, I did not want to see a scary movie. My sisters did go to see it. I do remember that, but I do remember that summer very, very well because. First of all, it was a blockbuster. You guys all know. We don't have to tell you how popular it was if you were even remotely around at that time. But I just remember the hype around this movie. Not the hype of the movie, like hyping the movie, but what it caused. People were so afraid to go in the water. I mean, people are afraid to go in a lake water. It's like, so sharks in lakes. But, I was telling Mary Beth, I remember the AM radio because everything was AM radio back then. The radio station was as a you call be the fifth caller kind of thing. They were giving out shark repellent kits, as a prize,
to people who lived in landlocked cities.
Yeah, and it was a huge thing, and it was and I was saying the 70s, when we think about it, really was really a renaissance or a golden age of films for some reason. It just seemed like we had so many great movies that came
Alien,
out.
Star Wars,
The Godfather. We had Jaws,
yeah.
Star Wars.
Alien.
Alien was 1980 technically, I think, wasn't it? Or was it 79?
I think it was the 70s.
It was 79, you might be right. But I mean, like blockbuster, I don't know if Alien was a huge block, but I mean, it's like blockbuster movie.
79.
Close Encounters, 1977.
Close Encounters, another fantastic Spielberg.
So we had some really amazing films. I think a lot of it we can attribute to Spielberg and Lucas.
Oh yeah.
So 79 for Alien. Okay, so it was just sneaked it in to the 70s. But anyway, my point is, it was an interesting time for films. So yeah, this movie was just a blockbuster hit. I don't know if they even considered that it was. It was very expensive to make for its time, and the biggest reason was because Spielberg insisted on shooting this on location.
On location on Martha's Vineyard, yeah.
Which Universal was not thrilled about, because it cost so much, because they were just waiting and waiting.
You're absolutely right. So they had like a $4 million budget, and it blew up to $9 million, more than twice, because of weather, tides, all kinds of things. You guys all already know that Bruce the Shark didn't work. Those delays, they thought they were going to shoot from May to June. They ended up shooting from May to September, which is unheard of and very, very expensive. And poor Spielberg, Spielberg had like nightmares from this thing, and he didn't have nightmares about sharks. No, he didn't care about that. He had administrative nightmares because the powers that be at the studio were perpetually threatening to fire him, to pull the plug on the movie.
I think they had people actually come out and were assessing things, to going, why is this taking so much?
Why is this taking so much?
And you got to remember, Spielberg wasn't Spielberg then. This was the movie that really put him on the map.
He had done Sugarland Express.
He did Sugarland Express, and he had done Duel for TV.
7 years old.
Yeah, so he was a kid, and he was unproven. Of course, this movie put him on the map, which opened the door for Close Encounters and E.T. and and he worked with, of course, Lucas on Indiana Jones and or I should say Raiders of the Lost Ark, to be correct.
So after this one, probably the next one was Close Encounters, right?
Close Encounters is the next big film, I believe. Yeah. So, but yeah, because of his success, but yeah, up until this point, he was relatively unknown. And I'm sure when the studio probably was going to make it, they're like, let's just do it cheap, get it out there. It's going to be Sharknado kind of equivalent. But they didn't know who they were dealing with.
He was stressed out. Yeah, he was stressed out. And when he tells this funny story, you can find it in interviews, where he's like, we finally go to the first screening, this very first screening, and one guy gets up and he's walking out, and then he starts running out, and Spielberg's like, oh my God, what have I done? And then he found out later, no, that guy got up and ran out to puke. And guys, here's the thing is, back then this movie was they considered it very, very violent. Yeah. Very, very graphic. And now we just watch it like, okay, whatever.
I know. And it's funny because, because me and my wife consider this one of the classics of all time, and it's one of our favorite movies. Yeah. We wanted our daughter to watch it, and we always said, well, it's scary. So we always, and she watched it. She's like, that wasn't scary at all. And I'm like, we're so desensitized by modern. I was like, if you guys are watching The Boys, I don't know if you're caught up with The Boys, and some of the stuff that's in that is so cringeworthy. And I don't mean cringeworthy. I mean, it's
you
weird,
watch it like
cringeworthy,
this.
But like the graphicness of some of the stuff.
You watch The Boys, or okay, let me rephrase that. I watch The Boys like this because
but it's television. I mean, it's not talking about an R-rated. This was PG.
Was it G? Yeah, because we didn't have. It had to have been, because we didn't have PG-13 back then.
They didn't have PG-13.
And it wasn't truly R. There's not a lot of cursing or anything. Or nudity.
No, there's a little bit, but no, it was PG, and PG-13 didn't come out. Actually, it was Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom, which got the PG-13 rating. That's what caused it to have that interim. So so it's PG, which it probably, at the time, it is kind of surprising that it wasn't R. But I think studios the R rating was almost like an X rating, like would be. You know what I'm saying? They didn't want to.
I mean, it really had to
hit
be
that R rating if they could avoid it because they
Yeah.
knew it was going to turn back then. Now it's like, oh, it's PG. It can't be that good.
Yeah, and I think they did trim a few things back. They trimmed a few things out to kind of hit that
Right.
PG mark. So yeah, but as Jeff Rubel was just saying, yes, we all know Bruce the Shark didn't work, but look how creative. Like, look what it pushed Spielberg to do. He did some genius, because he said he had a moment where he was like, all right, I don't have my monster, my main, antagonist. What would Hitchcock do? That was the smartest question he could have asked himself.
A lot of stuff
because the answers were brilliant
throughout his films, but in this film particularly, I mean, first of all, we don't see the shark till like halfway into the movie. I mean, the opening scene alone is terrifying. At least it was in 1975. And I'm sorry, if any of you ever swam at night, that's the first scene that comes to your head. If you've ever been swimming
at night in the ocean.
I remember when I was in college, I was in the scuba club and I did a lot of scuba diving, and we were in Stonington, Connecticut. We were lobster diving off the point in Stonington, and we got all our gear on. There was one guy that was still putting his stuff on. He was on the beach. There's maybe three of us, I think, already in the water, floating, waiting for him to come. And it was a beautiful night. The sun was, the moon was out, and it was reflecting off the ocean. And I just said, "Hey guys, remember the opening scene, the Jaws?" And they're all like, "You effing asshole!"
And now we can't go in the water.
And it's true. It's that you can't see. It's pitch black. Everything below you can't see anything. So it is
could be a shark right there for all you know.
There. So you can imagine the terror in that poor girl when she's getting thrashed about.
Yes.
I mean, and it was terrifying. It's probably the scariest scene in the movie, I think, is that opening scene.
That or the guy that falls out of the boat and you don't see.
The head was a jump scare.
The head was a good jump scare.
Oh, yeah. The two old guys that were trying to catch it with the...
Not the two old guys in the pier. The guy in the little red boat that...
yeah, the guy in the pond.
Water. And you can see it pretty clearly under the water. That was a good shot.
The leg going down, just his leg.
Yeah. Yes, just his leg. Yes. Him.
Yeah. So that was pretty graphic. Again,
pretty graphic.
Thing.
And the kid dying was pretty graphic. Alex Kintner.
And the poor dog Pippet.
And Pippet, Pippet died too. Yellow. Notice they all had yellow in common. Yeah. The Pippet's owner was wearing a yellow shirt. Alex Kintner was on a yellow raft, and his mom was wearing a yellow hat. And there was something else.
There was an interesting story about Mrs. Kintner, the actress. Went into a restaurant. I think she was in Nantucket or somewhere in there. I don't know. Maybe somebody knows it, but on the menu was the Alex Kintner sandwich, and so she had said, "Hey, you know what? I played the mother." And
the guy
owner of the restaurant came running out, and it was the kid that played Alex Kintner. And they hadn't seen each other since the film.
So that's Lee Fierro, who played the mom, and she was living on Martha's Vineyard. He used a ton of locals. She was living there, and she was teaching acting, so like, come do it. And she came and did it. She slapped him like 17 times or something, trying to get poor Roy. So, but she did an amazing job. She moved to, I want to say, Ohio or something, to be nearer to family, and unfortunately, she died of COVID in 2021.
She always looked too old to be his mother. I always felt that. I always felt she baby was more like. She just looked to me like she was too much. She died in 91
in 2021. Then in 1974, she would have been. Math is hard.
She would have been in her 40s at least then. Right?
Yeah, in her 40s. Okay, so she was a little bit older mom, but hey, whatever. Well, let's get back to Spielberg being Hitchcock, because it's not just that he did things like you watch those yellow buoys moving through the water. You don't have a shark, but we got yellow buoys. That was awesome. The time where it shows the ropes pulling the stern of the boat around, that was cool. But he also did other things, like when Brody's sitting on the beach and he knows there's been a shark attack and he's really nervous and he's watching, and you see these people, like you just keep seeing people going by like this, and it's blocking and you can't see. And then that guy comes, and the guy's sitting like right in front of him, like talking to him, and Brody's giving it one of these, like trying to.
A lot of those. That's classic Hitchcock. In fact, he uses that one shot
rear window.
When the one girl says shark,
And no
they do
one,
that shot where it's kind of it pulled the
yeah, and he
background
does
drops
that
away from it.
dolly zoom.
That's a
Yeah.
Hitchcock move. That's something that, and again,
Yes.
Spielberg always has taken from throughout his movies. He's always taken from, and it's just like we'll talk about John Williams, but John Williams would always, a lot of his stuff was pieced together from composers that predated him by far. You know what I'm saying? So they took the best of and put it together. Usually, I'm not saying it's a bad thing by any means.
No, whatever it was, wherever their inspiration came from, it was magic. It was absolute magic.
Yeah, the
I was just
cinematography in the
watching.
film is part of what makes it. Again, it's kind of like that editing, and it would not have been the same film. Yes, we know the shark is fake. We can tell the shark is fake.
Yes,
but we don't care because
but you're still scared.
Again, until the end when we actually see the shark in earnest. You're right. The whole part about with the barrels, and you can't go down with 3 barrels, not with 3 barrels on them, and shoom, sure enough, and
There he goes.
and there's always been the argument, was the shark almost supernatural in nature, like it was beyond normal shark, and why did it seem to have a grudge? Because it kept coming back for them. I'm saying after they,
Yes, let's talk about that. So the shark, its entire motivation, like if it was an actor and you sat it down and you were the director, you're like, okay, now your motivation is you're really hungry. Okay, you just want to eat. Okay, all right, have a great shoot. But then, like that's it. That's the shark's like total thing. Like there's no. I mean, maybe he's kind of vengeful, I guess, but not really. No.
Well, I mean, and Hooper explains that. He's like, look, there's just a perfect eating machine. All it does is swim and eat and make little baby sharks. That's all it does. The perfect machine.
That's fascinating as a filmmaker because now you have nothing to play off of. There's no personality there. Right?
And when you get to the sequels, especially the last one with the mother in the Bahamas, which is not a good movie. They basically imply that the shark has a vendetta against the Brody family. It's some kind of weird supernatural thing.
Stick just to Jaws. So he has this antagonist that has no motivation. It just is, which is kind of genius. It's kind of like the Doomsday Machine in a way. But so now in order to counterbalance that, he gave his 3 mains amazing character. Like they have amazing personalities, amazing character. He really fleshed them out, made them into very believable people, and it's an awesome balancing act.
Yeah, because we got Brody, who's moved from the city to get his family away from the crime of New York.
Yes.
So now he's on this little island, but he is afraid of water.
Yes.
He's afraid, he's like, I love it. I love that line. He's like, yeah, there's a technical name for it. It's in there. It's called drowning. It's just like a great line like that. So here you have a guy that, even Hooper says, he says something is kind of crazy for someone who's afraid of the water to live on an island. It's only an island when you look at it from the water.
Yeah, when you look at it from the water, it's an island. Yeah. No, but that's the other thing he does is like those moments, the moment where the mother's like, she's flipping through the book and she sees the shark.
Eating the boat.
There's so many moments. The moment where they're on the Orca and not Hooper, Brody's arguing, well, we can go. You got some barrels on him. Let's go back and get a bigger boat. Like his whole thing was, we need a bigger boat. Spielberg treats us like adults. He treats us like intelligent adults, and he doesn't spoon feed anything. He doesn't over explain. He expects us to keep up. And I love the realness. I love some of their arguing, and especially when they were arguing with the mayor. I loved when they talked over each other. It brought such great reality to it, and it sells it. Like it sells it. You're feeling it.
Well, it is. It's like the scene at the harbor when after the Kittner boy's been killed, and she puts out the reward for the shark, and he's like, and he makes a comment. She must have put an ad in Field and Stream. Which I don't even know if that magazine even exists anymore. I think so, but it was a popular sportsman's magazine, and because all these people came from. Look at the plates; these aren't my people. The deputy says he's like, look, Connecticut, Massachusetts, all over the place. New York, New Jersey. So and then there's the guys that are putting like 10 guys into this little tiny boat. He's like, the sheriff told me you're overloading that boat. What do you know? Oh, they're all gonna die.
Is there a good restaurant? Yeah, just walk straight in.
Die. It's like
they're all gonna die. And then he goes into the little house and goes, "Hey, those guys in the boat, they're all gonna die." Yeah. I love the reality. It's not spoon fed. It's not overproduced. It's not that weird actor talk where I talk, you talk, I talk, you talk. No, it was real life talking.
It was very natural and
very natural.
And the whole the whole kind of the adversarial nature between Quint and Hooper, because
Quentin
Hooper
Hooper,
being
yeah.
the, and Hooper kind of had to prove himself that he knew how to be on a boat, and that whole thing. And it really, they didn't bond, if you will, until the great speech, which we'll get to. And
we will
being
get
drunk
to
and showing their scars, which is such a guy thing.
The other weird thing about this movie is, I guess the shark's the bad guy, but the closest thing really we have to a villain, I mean, I guess the shark is the villain, but maybe the mayor is the villain? Maybe not.
I don't know. The mayor's just the, when you think about it, he is, again, a victim of circumstance, because he explains that very clearly, what his motivation is. Amity needs summer dollars. We can't get through the winter if our summers are bad.
Yeah.
These people, and that's his motivation. And he's the mayor.
That's actually very, very true.
And then once he realizes, after the whole incident at the beach with the Kittner kid and the guy in the pond, actually, no, the Kittner kid was before that, but the guy in the pond, and everybody realizes, they're like, they think you want the beaches open. You're the mayor of, you're
the bad,
down here.
Yeah.
So
interesting. There was a real life situation like this in the 2000s, somewhere in there in Egypt, where there was a shark off a beach, and they were having that very fight where some people like, nope, close the beach, and then the people that lived around, they're like, nope, keep it open. We need the money. We desperately need the money. I don't know what happened. I believe they opened the beach and then someone got hurt. No one died. Someone did get attacked, but I don't know what came of it. But that
economics will
tourist
overrule.
towns like Martha's Vineyard. Yeah, they do heavily rely.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. Nobody goes there in the winter. There's no reason to go to Martha's Vineyard in the winter. There's no reason to go to Cape Cod in the winter. And that's what he said. He's like, if they can't swim here, they'll go to Cape Cod, or they'll go to somewhere else. It's like, and just for the record, great white sharks are up here in the New England area. It's not uncommon. They'll come up with the Gulf Stream. They
Absolutely,
stick in normal water, but they have on many occasions had great white sharks sightings. So
if you guys are curious,
very plausible film in that sense that it could happen.
So
and again, the science that he does explain is fairly accurate. That they are territorial, that they will stay when there's food, that kind of thing. I love that whole scene when they're looking at the billboard.
Yeah. And he goes, it's proportionate, by the way. Yeah.
Correct. Love to prove that, wouldn't you?
A couple little, you're right. The science was right. The tiger shark that they caught, they had all that correct too. Tiger sharks are not native to New England. They don't like cold waters. They are down in Florida. That particular shark in the movie, real tiger shark, which they caught it in Florida, and then they had to figure out how to ship it up to Boston to get it in this movie. All right, whatever.
And it's true. They are essentially garbage cans. They are
garbage cans. And tiger sharks are great too. They'll mess you up too. If you're curious, since they started keeping records, they've had shark attacks since the 1700s, but they didn't keep records till the 1800s. There's been about 1,600 shark attacks in all of the United States, Hawaii, California, Florida mostly. Of all of those, there's only been 6 off of Massachusetts, and of the 6, only 3 were fatal. So you guys come to Martha's Vineyard, come to Cape Cod, come swim. You're safe.
I mean, I grew up in Southern Connecticut, so Long Island Sound, and we didn't have, there was never an issue with sharks. No. Not to say that they weren't there when again, scuba diving down in Florida, there were black tips, which black tips are man-eaters. But generally they won't attack people unless there's some reason, like they think you're really food. Generally, they're more afraid of you. But I remember scuba diving, you would see them as shadows at the edge of somehow they knew how far you could see. I don't know how they know this, but they'd always say just barely. So you'd see this kind of shadow. They would never come in very close to you. But we would hook them every once in a while, fishing those black tips, and those words, if you saw you got it near the boat and you pulled it in and you saw what it was, you just cut the line.
You're like, I'm done. I'm
Go
out.
on your way. I'm not trying to to get in the boat.
I want to get to some other stuff, but Jeff is asking, do great whites get to be 25 according to the great Google machine, which is known to be wrong? Great whites get to be 2021 feet. The maximum reported size ever is 23 feet. So, yeah.
And this was supposed to be an unusually large.
This was supposed to be a monster
so it was
fish.
hard to make it more terrifying.
Interestingly, because it needed to look so big, they shot. Remember when Hooper goes down in the cage? They shot all that stuff off of Australia because they needed real sharks for that. But they realized when they had a regular stand-in for Hooper and the regular cage, those sharks look really small. So to solve that, they made a much small. They found a little person, like this guy's name was Carl Rizzo. It was Rizzo. And they put him in a smaller cage and they put a little smaller tank on his back so it looked proportionate. Unfortunately, he had to learn scuba diving to shoot this, and those were real sharks, and they were really like kind of getting frisky with the cage, and so he was kind of like not. I'm not gonna say he was hyperventilating, but he was breathing pretty heavy.
Or you would be a little nervous. Yeah.
He ran out of air so much faster than they expected. So he's like, "I'm out. I'm going up." And he left. And after he left, came that big attack. That shark actually attacked that cage.
Yeah, there was actual footage. Yeah, that was real footage.
Real footage. Yeah, and they were thrilled to get it. They were delighted to get it. They almost killed Carl Rizzo, but they got their footage. So yeah, motivation. Motivation. He got himself out because he was hyperventilating and he ran out of air. He got himself out just in time. He probably would have been hurt if he'd still been in that cage, I think.
Yeah, I mean that's another great line when they're loading the cage on. The movie's just chock full of great lines. They're loading the equipment on Hooper's equipment onto the orca, and he says, "What's that? Anti-shark cage?" He's like, "Do you go in the cage? You go in the cage. Cage goes in the water. Shark's in the water. Our shark." And he just starts singing "Farewell and Adieu to You." I mean, it was just Quint was really the most colorful. And they do describe him as colorful character in the whole thing. I mean,
Robert Shaw was brilliant. He wasn't going to take it. So let me actually tell you who they were looking at, and then let's get to it. Let's get to that monologue. So they were looking at where is it? Who did they want for Quint? Quint was based on Ahab. Brody's kind of the everyman, and Hooper's the exposition character. He has to explain everything. So they had Robert Duvall and Charlton Heston up for Brody. They wanted Jeff Bridges, maybe Joel Grey, or Jan Michael Vincent, which would have been weird for Hooper. And then for Quint, they looked at Lee Marvin, Charles Bronson, and Sterling Hayden. And the side note, the dogs, if you notice the dogs at the Brody household, those are Spielberg's dogs. But anyway, the fact that they settled on Robert Shaw, absolutely genius. I
don't think some of those other ones probably could have pulled it off.
I don't know. Robert just brings.
No, there's no question he was perfect. I just think I could see some of the other guys in there doing it if you kind of think about it.
Maybe
not necessarily for Brody or Hooper, but in Quint's.
For Quint, maybe, yeah. But let's get to it. Let's talk about that monologue.
Well, we kind of were talking before the show, and we were kind of comparing it to Rutger Hauer's monologue in his big monologue in the movie. Come on, I'm totally drawing a blank.
The Indianapolis monologue.
No, the one that Rutger Hauer did in.
The Tears in the Rain monologue.
Yeah, the Tears in the Rain one. So
Blade Runner.
Yeah, Blade Runner. So. I was saying I think this was more impactful for the more reason that it's a true story.
Yes.
And it's accurate. So those of you who don't know, and I'm sure most of you do, the Indianapolis story that he talks about, and we delivered the bomb.
We delivered the bomb.
Was accurate. That was hidden. In fact, there's been films actually made about that whole.
Yeah, just about that incident. Yeah.
Yeah, about that one incident, and So yeah, the one he just delivers. Now he did. I think the first time he did it, he was pretty drunk, and I think they had to reshoot it. But we don't know which version we saw.
He supposedly called, apologized, and asked could he try again sober. We don't know what we're seeing. Are we seeing?
Yeah, we don't know which version we see in the sober one or the drunk one. But either way, it works.
What I wanted to point out, because I think these two monologues, even though Rutger Hauer's is quite short, I think they may be the two greatest monologues ever put to film. I really do. I love them. I actually have, you guys can't see, but I have Rutger's. See that? That's the Rutger Hauer one. Both of these men took multiple page Rucker Hauer and Robert Shaw. And Robert Shaw was an accomplished playwright. He'd already had some plays mounted on stage. Took like multiple page scripts and said, let me have a whack at it, and cut it down. Robert Shaw took 8 or 10 pages and cut it down to like 3, and that's what we see. Rucker Hauer took multiple pages and really cut it down to that, which is, it's like not even 1 page up there on the wall. And they both deliver and like they get right to the essence of it.
And it's riveting. And
it's riveting, yes.
It sets up, and the thing is, it sets up because by the time he's done, they're all like kind of stunned.
Yes.
And then the shark, boom.
And then the shark's there. And it's interesting that you notice Hooper knew what it was. Hooper, like, you were on the Indianapolis?
Yeah.
And Cody was like, oh, what's the Indianapolis? And so Robert Shaw.
And people didn't know prior to this movie. A lot of people did not know about the Indianapolis.
I think you're right, because I think it was kind of kept, I don't want to say
it was not advertised, so to speak.
It was not advertised because it was a failing on the part.
It wasn't a proud moment in the Navy's history.
He says it in the monologue. Well, since we were so super secret, no SOS went out.
Yeah, nobody knew. Yeah, and the boat went down so fast.
And the boat had 12 minutes. That's true.
It was went super fast. It just cracked the boat in half, and it went down, and so that they didn't. That's why they didn't even get a stress ball out. But that
Martin is reminding us, yes, and now we have the Shaw monologue in Picard. Right. Another fantastic monologue.
That monologue, because so many of us, that's what we remember from this film.
As soon as we saw Stashwick give that monologue, we all went Quint.
And he's named Shaw. He was named Shaw after the actor. So they were going to probably. I mean, at the time I didn't know, but once he did the speech, I'm like, that's why he's Shaw.
And like little light bulbs started going off in people's heads all across America. All Star Trek.
That was brilliant, and of course that was probably that was an epic, of course, as well. It was certainly the highlight, I think, of the Picard.
It was so well done. And it's another one where it's riveting. You're right there with him while he's waiting to be rescued, and he's scared he's not going to because she picked him at random, right? And he was like, "Oh, okay." Like, yeah, unbelievable, great. See the power of good acting.
And the thing is, we know Wolf 359. Like we know that whole story because we witnessed it in a sense.
Well, kind of, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It was part of the show, so we're aware of it. So. And they've used this before because remember Sisko, not to get too far off the mark here, but Sisko had the same issue with Picard because he was there as well and he lost his wife.
Yeah.
There. So and again he's blaming Picard for it. So they kind of kept that thread going,
Yes.
They're not going to let Picard off.
Maybe in Pale Moonlight, he might have where he says computer delete this. That, not you. That might be his version of the Shaw speech. But yeah, I mean, any monologue that carries you along and puts you there in the moment is just unbelievable.
And it was done. This one was done so brilliantly, and it's so riveting in this thing because they go from this. They're clearly drinking.
Look at my star.
Which is such a guy. Look at this one. This one was, I love the one. He goes, Becky Sue, whatever name. She broke my heart. That was, and it's funny, and they're laughing.
Side note: Roy's actually looking at his real appendix. That's his real appendix.
Yeah. He's like, and then he goes, there's a tattoo that he must have had removed, and he goes, that's. That was the Indianapolis, and that's what you were. And then you could see Hooper's reaction immediately says he knew, like you said, he was aware of what was coming, but of course Brody didn't, and then I love it. I just love the whole sequence of how he goes through the whole thing, and then boom, the shark, and then they're scrambling and.
And Spielberg just did an amazing job with editing and timing. And the other kind of moment where you're right along with them is when Quinn, his line, he has a fishing pole, which you can't catch a shark on a fishing pole, but whatever. He has the fishing pole with the line, and it just goes tick tick. It just goes out a little bit, and he's looking away, and you just see the eyes. His eyes only come back, and then he starts, and it's the way Spielberg cut this is he did a lot of close-ups, you see him quietly getting into those shoulder straps. And then you check on Brody. Brody's still dicking around with the rope. Okay, and then he quietly gets the pole into the center well. You check on Brody, still fooling around. All right, and then we're gonna hook ourselves to this side of the pole and hook ourselves to and he's doing all this very quietly, very surreptitiously. And it's just the way that is edited together and the way that plays out, because it's a lot of tight close-ups. You see him doing this, and it builds this suspense. It builds this tension. You're like, oh my god, is this it? Is he coming? Is this shark coming? What's happening? You know, it's so good. Like, just he did some 27.
You can catch a shark on a fishing pole. It's just how big it is.
Yeah, I know you're right, but he had established that this thing was a monster.
But the 25-footer, you're right. No, but I guess he did explain to it. He's like, I'm just trying to get it up to the surface.
Yeah, yes. So they can get the barrels in it.
That's all he was trying to do. And that's why but you're right. That's a great scene when he gets in the fighting chair and then.
And the moment,
sudden,
Cooper's desperately trying to tie the tacker onto the barrel, and he lets go, and that barrel pops out. Like, that was such a good moment.
Yeah,
like,
don't wait on me.
Don't wait on me.
To put the strobe on there.
He's desperate, and he's trying to.
It's a good thing he got the tracker, because that's another great scene. Because all of a sudden you see the barrels, boof, boof, and the tracker like, doot, doot, and they're like, and then that's when they get the boat hook, and they grab in the rope to pull it in, and they're like, what's going on? Why are these just sitting here? Where is he?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he runs, and of course, remember, they get caught, and that's when it starts pulling the transom out, and that's when things start to really go badly for them.
That's when things go bad. Yeah.
But the other scene is, this becomes a very Ahab moment, of course, for Quint, because at that point, that's when Brody gets on the radio. He's like, we're done. And he's on the radio. He's going, Mayday, Mayday. And he comes in with the little baseball. Those are fish beaters, by the way. Those the little baseball.
Oh, really? I was wondering.
That's why it's a little short baseball bat. That's like if you do get a large fish and it's floppy.
You gotta club it. I get it. Gross, but okay, yeah.
Yeah, smack in the head, kill it. But that's a great scene, and you see Brody just loses. That's just great. Brody at that point, he's gone. He's like, this thing, I'm gonna get it.
Yeah.
And I don't care. It's like, I'm not.
Right. He's having his Ahab moment.
Right.
The other really smart thing that Spielberg did was Brody learns and then applies his knowledge later. Like, earlier on, I don't remember what happened. The boat rocked or something, and those
tanks. So what happened was, so Hooper had them secured, the tanks, with some of the cage stuff with a rope, and he said, get me another float. I think he needed for marker, and he went to go get one, and he pulled the wrong rope, and the whole thing, and the tank were rolling, and he says, these are compressed air, they can explode if you, was a little bit of a lie. It doesn't, they having known scuba tanks, but if you had knocked the valve off, yes, the thing becomes a missile, and it would have blown a hole in the boat. So he wasn't completely inaccurate, and it was accurate that if you shot it with a rifle like he did, it would probably explode like that. Whether it would be, that.
Whether or not the shark would keep it in his mouth, we don't know. But just roll with it.
So that was again some foreshadowing that. Okay,
but did you notice that after that, Brody kept checking on those tanks? Like, every time there was an incident and the boat moved or rocked, Brody checked on those tanks every time, and I thought that was really smart, because it lended to the foreshadowing.
Right.
That it'll be the tank at the end. Actually, you know what? Way back in the beginning, when he was leafing through a book, there was a picture of a shark with a tank in its mouth. There was a lot of foreshadowing. Do you remember when Quint was in the meeting, the public meeting?
Yeah,
there was. In the public meeting, there's nothing on the blackboard, and then when he makes his amazing entrance by dragging his nails down the blackboard, he's drawn a picture of someone in a shark's mouth.
Yeah.
On the blackboard.
He says a little shaking, a little tenderizing, and down you go.
Down you go.
Yeah. Bruce saying that that's the best scene. You're right. That is Brody's best scene, is when he's putting the chum out and he says something like, why don't you come down here and chum some of this shit? And he's got the cigarette. I just love that scene, because the cigarette's just hanging there, and he's just like, and the shark just goes like this and comes out. That's one of the first times you really see it.
Yes.
And he just backs up and he's like, we're going to need a bigger boat. And the cigarette just, I don't know if that was an accident or if it was somehow intentional. My guess is it would just happen that way. But the cigarette just hanging off like the spit out his mouth, like it's not.
And he backs up.
Like he's like,
all
I'm
the
done.
way into the cabin.
And he was right. They should have got a bigger boat.
They should have. Which reminds me of what I asked you before the movies, before we started this tonight. I said to you, Rizzo, I had a rewatch. I completely forgot that Hooper had his own boat, and it was a nice yacht, right?
He was very rich, but I don't think his boat was bigger than the Orca. It certainly was more modern and newer, but I don't think it was necessarily bigger. It was probably not much smaller. But yeah, a lot of people. That was even. I remember that argument way back in the '70s when people watched this movie. It's like, why didn't they take Hooper's boat? Why didn't they take Hooper's boat? Why are they on? Well, you think first of all, you think Quint did have the expertise of catching sharks, so it made logic that he would be the one to go get it. But you think he was going to go on Hooper's boat? There's no way he would have gone on.
There's no way we were on Hooper's boat. Yeah.
No. So, and the Orca would have done fine had Quint not beat the crap out of it. Remember, because they were fixed it and they had water in the thing, and he's like, "Don't push it that hard." And he just
and then when they found the barrels and they were dragging it,
yeah. So had he just gone easy with it, they would have probably gone to shore.
They probably would have made it.
And they would have made it.
Little boat behind the scenes story. The orca. They were two orcas. One was a real boat, and the other orca was the stunt boat that deliberately would come up and go down, sink this way and sink that way and sink whichever way they needed it to sink. Well, they're all on the real boat. The three main actors, a 70-year-old sound guy, and a stunt driver driving the boat. And I don't know what they were doing. The stunt driver was in charge, and they were showing this attack, and something happened, and this boat actually does start taking on water for real. So the stunt driver aims for Chappaquiddick, thinking, okay, if this thing's in trouble, we'll just beach it on Chappaquiddick. And behind him is Spielberg in all the crew boats, all the production boats, and Spielberg's on a bullhorn going, "Get the actors off the boat. Get the actors off the boat." And the actors are going, "Get the 70-year-old sound guy off the boat." And the 70-year-old sound guy's going, "Fuck that. Just get my very, very expensive equipment off the boat."
Right. Yeah, he's more worried about.
So
that's
they did.
Probably true.
They saved him. Sound guy went on to win an Oscar, by the way. And so did John Williams. And I think they got an Oscar for editing, which it was edited by a female. And I apologize, I can't think of her name off the top of my head. I'll look it up for you. So it's just kind of a funny little thing going on behind the scenes. There were so many funny things going on behind the scenes in this thing.
Yeah, Bill's asking if did Mythbusters do the tank. I don't know if Mythbusters may have done it, but you know who did do it was those Hollywood Weapons guys that came up to the set tour that did the Gorn cannon thing. They did do this one, I'm pretty sure. And I don't remember what they found. But as somebody who used to scuba dive, I can tell you that those aluminum tanks, hold about 3,000 psi of air pressure. So it's basically, they used to say, about 80 cubic feet of air into that one tank. So figure the volume of basically what a phone booth, which those even exist anymore, squished down to that one little size. So anyway, they are under a lot of pressure, and you do have to handle them with care because if the valve gets knocked off,
it would blow. Would it blow up a shark's head? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, if you shot it, it would probably if you because that would disrupt the.
Would it just make the hole and shoot the shark backwards?
It might explode. I mean, there were incidents where people. I remember when I had worked at a scuba store and we were filling tanks, and so you have to make sure that it's been inspected and all this stuff, and it has all the right before you'd fill it. And I remember there was a story, and it wasn't anywhere near us, but where guys had bought new tanks and then they painted them with automotive paint to make them look the color they wanted to. And at the time, you would bake that paint. So you would basically, it was like a powder coating it. And they baked these tanks. Well, that basically hardened the aluminum and made it brittle. Basically, they were and what happened was when they went to go fill these tanks, they got up to pressure and they just shattered and killed whoever was in.
That's interesting because the tank, that tank needs to withstand pressure from within and some amount of pressure from without.
Not significantly.
Not significant.
No. At at most scuba diving, you're looking at, even at 60 feet, you're at 2 atmospheres.
Yeah.
So
all right.
The body can take it. The tank, it's nothing. It's the internal pressure. If you look at the neck of those aluminum, I mean, it's like that thick near the neck.
Really?
Yeah, it's very substantial. They used to make them out of steel, which they would be thinner because steel's stronger than aluminum, but aluminum's a lot lighter.
Yes.
Anyway, digress.
We digress.
Scuba diving.
Did anybody? So in my teaser, I'm sure you guys remember the line. That's some bad hat, Harry. Does anybody else? Am I the only one that remembers there's a production company called Bad Hat?
That used to use that. That's one bad.
And they used to use that at the end of their shows, and I have distinct memories of seeing it, but now I couldn't tell you which ones. So they revolutionized some underwater filmmaking. Bill Butler was the cinematographer, and he's the one who decided, you know what, we're putting the camera in a box, we're gonna film this so that we're kind of half underwater and half above the water. And God, did that ever look good? Did that ever look good? A lot of this, most of this thing was handheld, which seems like it would be, but you needed that movement of the water, I think, to kind of
No, that was a great way to do it. Again, anything to kind of give you that sense. The last thing you wanted to be was in the water with this thing.
In the water with this thing.
Saying that's kind of so that having this kind of shot where it's doing this and it's just so many good scenes. I mean, the scene even one on the beach when you can see they did this aerial shot and you have this beautifully long beach and all these people and not one person in the water.
Yeah, no one's in the water.
That whole scene was
the mayor,
so well done.
Like, get in the water.
Yeah, go in the water. Yeah, go in the water.
Oh, the mayor was a
jerk.
The author of the book
jackets too.
Yeah, really. Oh, right, and all the little anchors on his jacket.
Yeah, terrible jacket. Even for 1975.
Author of the book, Peter Benchley, makes a cameo as the reporter on the beach. He disagreed. His ending is different. And he's like, Spielberg was right with his ending, changing the ending and making it really like,
Yeah. So in the original Jaws book by Peter Benchley, everybody dies except Brody. So when Hooper goes into the cage, he gets eaten.
Yes.
At that point, he does not go and hide like they said down at the bottom and wait for the shark to die. So that's and again the shark dying. By the way, I believe they took the audio. That was the same audio that they used from Duel. And
that piece of audio is from some old dinosaur movie. He said Spielberg says a dinosaur movie.
Yeah, I want to say they used it again in Jurassic Park.
They might have. Spielberg wasn't even there for the end. He left before it. He was on a plane out of Boston, and they were left still showing this shark blow up. They stuffed it full of like squid and octopus and calamari and dead bits of fish, so that there'd be chunks to like. So gross.
Yeah, it was for its day, and like we said, we talk about it. It was quite graphic and frightening, but by today's standards, not at all.
It was ahead of its time. For 1975, they had merchandise for this thing, which is kind of unusual, and they released behind the scenes footage for this thing back then, which was completely unheard of.
Yeah.
No one.
Remember, we had a book of the making of it. In the middle of the book, it had all kinds of pictures.
Yes.
Of the production. I remember seeing the shark with the big gear thing. We've all seen that kind of Bruce outside the water. By the way, Bruce, they used that when they did Finding Nemo. Bruce, the shark's name was Bruce, and that was a definite nod to Jaws. Yeah, so that was definitely a nod to Jaws. We didn't even talk about John Williams and his sound and his score.
Yeah, we've been listening to it. It's been playing.
John Williams was certainly in the industry, but he was not as well known as he was now. He wrote this and he played it for Spielberg, and Spielberg thought it was a joke at first. He's like, "So what are you really going to do for me?
What are you really doing?"
And then of course now we know that this is one of the most iconic pieces of all time. Everybody knows that Jaws theme. You know what I'm saying? You can't tell one. You can't play it. Everybody goes, "That's Jaws."
You can you can walk into a house with a piano and just go bum bum, and people know what it is.
Exactly. So it launched his career as well, and I think John Williams even says that this movie is what launched his career. Of course, he went on to do so many epic soundtracks, from Superman to Star Wars. Indiana Jones. I mean,
the soundtrack of our lives was written by
really when you think about it. I have a CD that's like it's the Spielberg Lucas collaboration. It's all John Williams stuff from those two movies. Or those movies where Spielberg or Lucas did it with basically Indiana Jones and stuff like what was the Japanese one? The Japanese World War II. Empire of the Sun. I've talked about that before. If you've never seen it, it's a Spielberg film. It's so good. And the other thing that Spielberg did when he did 1941, the opening, again, there was an opening scene, and it was the same girl, Chrissy, or the actress that played Chrissy, that went nude swim.
Her name is Susan Backliner.
And instead of the shark coming up and getting her, it's a Japanese submarine. They did that.
Submarine,
Again, Spielberg did his own scene. They basically recreated the entire scene, except instead of the shark, the periscope comes up and she's up there naked on top of the periscope, which is great. By the way, I think we did. Did we do 1941? I feel like we did it.
I didn't think we did.
Oh,
but
we
maybe.
should have it.
I
It
don't
was a
feel
great
like I've
movie. Spielberg calls it his biggest failure, but I thought it was such a great movie.
It wasn't. Was that
And
the one
the
that did? Was that the one Ben
soundtrack,
Affleck?
What?
Is that the one Ben Affleck?
No, it's got a ton of people. It's got Dan Aykroyd in it. It's got, oh my God, the list.
Maybe we didn't see it.
Is in it. John Belushi's in it. I mean, the list of it's like a huge. Warren Beatty's in it. It's a great film and it's funny. It's about the obviously right after the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor and the fear that was in Southern California that the Japanese were going to attack the mainland. So it was that kind of hysteria, but it was done as a comedy. But it's very, very well done. It didn't do, I guess, well in the theater, but it's really good. But John Williams did the theme for that.
Maybe we need to do that because I don't feel like I've seen that.
If everybody wants us to do it, I loved it. I saw it in the theater and I thought it was hysterical then. I still think it's hysterical now. It's a very good movie. Yeah, if you don't, if nothing else, just go watch 1941.
Yeah.
So
Boston Legal had cello players at Jersey.
You're right, Bill. Obviously, he did both Lost in Space.
That's right. He did do Lost in Space. That's true.
He did the first one and the second one. You know how jazzy because John Williams came from a jazz background, not a classical background. So his original, they used to call him Little Johnny Williams back in the 60s.
Johnny Williams.
Yeah. So now he's in his 90s, I think, isn't he?
He's still alive. Yes, he is still alive. God, that'll be a huge loss. Oh my God, when he finally goes. If you guys are interested in going to Martha's Vineyard, almost all of these filming locations are still in existence. Not much has changed at all. You can go see all of them. And you can, there's a great outtake of Roy Scheider saying something that we say all the time. If you've ever worked on a film or TV show, you know, it's not the time it takes to take the takes. It's the time between the takes that takes the time.
Yeah, you're always waiting on something.
Saying that.
You're always waiting on somebody to set something up, to relight, to reset.
And in this case,
it's in this one they're waiting on the ocean most of the time to cooperate. Well, I don't think we barely scratched the surface, but I think we might revisit.
I have like 3 pages of notes, guys. I wish I
think we're going to revisit this again in a year because this is such a
it'll celebrate its 50th. Yes,
it'll be 50 years. So that'll think as those of us that were around when this movie came out make you feel old, in case you didn't already. But it was such a great film. The second film really was okay. The sequel to it. Certainly not nearly as good. And then the third and the fourth one we won't even pretend happened because they were so bad.
I don't remember. Roy Scheider was commenting on that. He didn't want to do the second one, but he did I don't remember.
No, he did not want to do the second one. No.
He didn't want to do it, and then he bailed after that. He's like, I'm out.
Yeah, the third one was like the one with Louis Gossett Jr. The 3D one. It was the third one was terrible. It was Jaws in 3D. It was awful.
They're all terrible. Sharknado was terrible. Every shark movie that has come.
No. I still say I think the Meg has merit.
There's a new one that just came out.
There's a Meg 2. I haven't seen Meg 2. I think the Meg was good. It wasn't good like this, but it was good in a fun way. So.
Yeah, guys, a new one just came out. It looks kind of hokey. It's called Under Paris, and it's about a shark in the Seine River, which.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's on Netflix. If you guys are really
of course spawned a lot of very similar movies. There was Piranha. There's all kinds of movies.
We were talking about Barracuda. I bet there was a Barracuda movie.
Yeah, it did spawn a lot of stuff. So anyway,
all right. An alligator movie. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. So anyway, let's we're gonna wrap it up. I mean, it's a great movie. We didn't talk. Like I said, we scratched the surface on it.
We barely scratched the surface on this, you guys.
But we are at the end of the hour. So at this point, I guess. The questions are: what's Roy doing, and what's
Roy is finally going to try to do Wild Wild West this weekend. He had to reschedule it, and Phil is celebrating the anniversary of WUSB. They have been on the air for 47 years, almost as long as Jaws has been around. So they're going to be doing the music of 1977 and also talking about the science fiction books and movies of 1977. And of course, top of that list will probably be Star Wars. So that's what's going on with Phil. What are we doing, if anything?
So at this point, I have to confirm with Alex is going to come back, and she wanted to do, and we were talking about doing it anyway. The what the hell is it? I told you what it was. The
yeah, you just did tell me. What is it?
One with Ryan Reynolds. The other
Adam Project.
The Adam Project. I knew it was something project. I couldn't think of the guy's name. So we're gonna So if Alex is available, we're gonna do the Adam Project, which is another Ryan Reynolds film. It's really a kind of a it's a nice film. It's like you could watch it with your kids.
Oh yeah, absolutely family film. Not
family film. It's an action film, but it's still family film. So we're gonna do that, and then beyond that, I don't know.
We'll figure. Well, by then, and then we'll be all leaving to go various places, and then we'll see you all in Ticonderoga for the William Shatner event.
Right? So. Yeah. Because right after that, I'm headed to Montreal for the Montreal Comic Con, and I'm going to hopefully get a pic and an autograph of one of my men there, Alan Tudyk.
Alan Tudyk.
Very excited.
Can you make it?
I'm bringing my dinosaurs.
Like a leaf on the wind. I wonder if that's how he signed stuff. He signed it like leaf on the wind, Alan Tudyk.
Yeah, I don't know what we'll do, but I'm gonna definitely get a picture of me and him with I have the dinosaurs from the show, so they're the exact same ones. So anyway, on that note, we will say good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us. As always, live long and prosper. May the force be with you, and stay out of the water. Good night.